been a while since we've had an update on Project Redline, Broomy.
Yeah, I was just you can see the old girl's pretty dusty, so I haven't really touched it at all since we moved in. I was just looking at found the time slip then from where we won 946 147, and just thinking about what we're going to do next to the thing. So if we went out right now again, and really the track was there and had a little bit more time tuning it, I got no doubt that it would run 920s pretty comfortably. Maybe even like a high 991. Even just as it is now, on a really good track, it might even dip into the 90s. So in terms of performance and the power it's making, I'm pretty comfortable where it is at the moment. But I suppose the biggest thing for me this year in 2019 is how I'm going to get this car to the racetrack. So with the new house, it's just very difficult to get a tandem trailer down here. I actually got bogged moving this car here in my own driveway. So I was going to always build a tandem trailer, but I've pretty much scratched that plan now. So what we're looking to do in 2019 is build a new project car, and we're going to build a tow truck to tow this and any other cars we need to. What we're going to do is look for a Ford F350, like a 70s or really early 80s Ford F350 dually. So if you've got an F350 dually, or you know someone with one in Victoria, I'm not interested in going all around Australia just looking for one, but if you've got one in Victoria, preferably somewhere around Melbourne, let us know please, because we really want to buy one ASAP so we can get started on the project, because there'll be a lot of work involved in that. So the quicker we can get that up and running and completed, the quicker we can get back to racing this. Back to Project Redline and what we really need to do. I guess one of the main things is that we covered in the video a couple of times with the brakes. So I don't know if it's the front brakes or the rear brakes, but the pedal's disgusting. So the pedal's really poor. I know there's there's a leak from one of the fittings or whatever at the front. You can see the master cylinder is actually empty, or half empty, and that would have been full, and it's just drained out under its own pressure because I think one of the fittings is slightly cocked. It might be just touching back here when I've reassembled it one day. So that's my bad. But it's got a I think it's like a really common 1-inch upgrade master cylinder from a Patrol or something on there. But the front and rear brakes are an unknown. So the rear calipers are like Series 3 RX7, just normal discs, and the front are basically Series 1 RX7. So they're probably neither of these have been rebuilt ever in their lifetime, and they could be just.
So it probably just needs a major overhaul. The braking system.
So I don't know even if
as opposed to an upgrade.
I think the rears are fine, so I'll probably get the rears rebuilt, but the fronts I might just replace with something. I've got some other big calipers somewhere, so I've got some.
Back in the day, didn't guys used to use like was it Volvo calipers?
Yeah, it depends on the disc that you're running as to what combo guys used to do. So I think there was the most common's probably I think it was like Volvo disc and Commodore calipers, but these are from a BA Falcon. I think you can see these are absolutely huge.
Yeah, they're pretty heavy though.
So I mean they're heavy, but I mean the stuff on the front of the car is already pretty heavy as well. So if we put these on and we know that solves the problem, then sure I can look at doing maybe some lightweight brakes from say Willwood or something like that later. But that's probably the first one, solving the braking issue. And then we'll move on to other stuff. So the car's going fine mechanically, it's fine, it's been really reliable. ECU and the data logger's done its job, but the ECU that's in it, the Microtech, the LT16C, that ECU was released in 2012, so it's still current. It's actually still being made, and it's still in 6-second 13B rotaries around the world. But I really want to upgrade to the latest technology. I really love tech, really love staying up to date with what's new out there. So probably one of the first things we'll do in sometime in early this year will be upgrading that ECU and dash combo to something else that's really up to date. So looking at something that can you can see all the boxes across the dash, and I've got like an e-boost on one side, and then all the little boxes for all the separate things. So I'm looking for an ECU that can do boost control, the trans control with a bump box, and even live fuel trimming, all inbuilt in the ECU. Whereas at the moment I've got the dash is also the data logger. So what I look on the dash software, I've then got to go to the ECU and then make changes so it doesn't overlay. It's just a bit clunky when you're going to the drag strip to try and save time to turn around rounds, and then also I've got to go to the boost controller and make a separate adjustment on that. So at the moment I'm basically plugging into the dash, pulling out data, reading the data, going to the ECU, plugging into that, making changes with that, then going over to the boost controller, then making changes with that, as well as trying to turn the car around as well. So if I can just plug into one thing and make all the changes I need to with all the data and that's what I'm looking to do. So not sure what we're going to do yet. I'll bench race a fair few ECUs and I'll have a look at what we're going to do, and then we'll make a decision based on whatever best suits the profile of what we want to do with the car. So nothing wrong with the Microtech that's in it now even, because it's been really reliable, and the fastest cars around the world have a Microtech, but whatever we do. I mean, we're always looking to try different things for our customers and make sure we're on top of the latest technology too. So next thing past that will be, like I said, I mean, in this current configuration, I'm pretty confident it'll easily go into the 9.0s. From what I've seen and talked to a lot of people out there, the auto transmission that's in it now from Keys, the Jatco 3-speed, they're really, really reliable up to that 9.0, sort of just on or just shy of around about the 150 mile an hour range. Past that, they start to get less reliable. So because it's a very small, physically small auto, and power means heat, and they can't get rid of the heat that well. So there's just nothing that the transmission builder can actually do to make it more reliable past that 9-second range, because they're just so small and you create so much heat, it can't get rid of the heat. Doesn't matter how big your trans cooler is, they just can't get rid of it. So if we start looking to really push this car even further and run into somewhere into the 8s, it's probably going to start becoming a little bit unreliable. So instead of getting, we've done close to 50 plus passes so far in this transmission, as well as the best part, I think we did 19 or 20 dyno pulls on the dyno. So I mean, it's done a mountain of work, and it's still A1. I've pulled the trans fluid, and it's perfect. So there's nothing wrong with the trans at the moment, but the further and further we push it, we're probably going to run into reliability issues. Which the number one thing when I built this car was, no matter what we do, I want to put something far greater than we need to in the car. So the turbo was always past what we needed to in terms of the goals, that the fuel system's overkill, and all that kind of stuff. So we probably need to ask some people out there that are running different transmissions behind 2-rotor engines about what we should possibly upgrade to. So say our goal was 850, maybe 155 mile an hour or something like that. What transmission is consistently reliable at that power, or even quicker? So I mean, even if our goal was to run 850, what I would be looking to do is find a transmission that could reliably run down to say 8.0. So I know that if we ever want to step up further again, or put it in a different car, or run a bigger tire or whatever, that transmission's still right. So the options that I've seen out there, probably C4 from a Ford, although it's very similar to the Jatco in its makeup. So I'm not sure if that's actually the right choice. It's a Power Glide, which is a 2-speed transmission, but their first gear is very tall. So even the first gear with the 6-cylinder Power Glide, it's traditionally a GM transmission, still a 1:8:2 ratio, whereas something like a normal 3-speeds are about a 2:4:5 in first gear. So just not sure how turbocharged 2-rotor will actually cope with a 2-speed, as I don't really want to run nitrous to help it. And the other trans is probably, it's become very popular lately, seems, is the Turbo 400, but they are a physically large transmission. They also soak up a lot of power. So
that if you go Turbo 400, we might have to put a 3-rotor in it.
Budget paying for the Turbo 400, I don't think it stretch to the 3-rotor. It's a good point. We did ask a lot of people on on our Facebook, our group page. So we've got the Fullboost Facebook page you've probably seen. We also have a group page for Fullboost where we have a lot of open discussions with people. So we asked them what we should do, and a lot of people said 3-rotor, but
I much prefer looking at our group page than the main page.
Yeah. The main page, I mean, it's I mean, you get 700,000 plus followers and that, but and the group page is only, it's only about 3,000 or something, if that. But there's some really good interaction. It's where you know, if someone asks a question, people can post stuff up themselves and get feedback from other people. So we posted up a bit about this the other day and what people wanted to see. So I'd probably like to talk to even some transmission builders that have done trans in rotaries, probably specifically on how far we could push a C4, or what the Turbo 400 would mean for us in terms of power soaking and how much power we're going to give up trying to just move that transmission. So that's the trans. We'll work out that one as well. At the moment, we've just got to sort the car out to run that 9.0 sort of thing, or even 899 or something like that with the Jacko, which it's more capable of. One thing we've never done, Bremy, is actually weigh this car. Yeah, I mean, you'll probably know better than I will, but it's not very easy to push. It comes back to the brakes. I'm not sure.
It's probably because your brakes are welded on the whole time.
I don't know if a brake is slightly dragging or if it's just a big heavy car. And if you look in here at the roll cage, you'll see it's got a crossbar here. It's got what they, in terms of circuit racing, they call like a Sains bar here. Yeah. Then it's got a big cross in the cage here. It's got another cross in the roof up the top, and this is just all steel. So it's not like
it's a circuit roll cage, really.
It was built. It's built based like FIA specs more than just Andro IHRA specs. So, and this is all steel. So this will all be as heavy as all hell. Instead of being, we could possibly rebuild this out of chromoly if we wanted to save a lot of weight.
Cut the whole cage out into a Hollywood run.
The entire car would probably twist into like a little pancake. I'd love to weigh this car. Again, I mean, that'd be the benefit of having something like this F350 tow truck, is just being able to go bang, go out to the nearest weighbridge, wherever that is, and put it on the scales and weigh it to the nearest 10 kilograms or whatever. Only other option is, you can get corner weight and scale it, but so I don't know if anyone out in the eastern suburbs has.
I could probably get them for you, mate.
Corner scales. That'd be a mint if someone wants to come out here to Montrose and weigh the car for us, so we know where we're sort of sitting. Because it is a really good way to work out how much power you're making out of a car too. If you know how much it weighs and what mile an hour it's running, you can pretty accurately work out the power of a car. But just the weight will tell us. I'm not so much interested in how much is over the front or over the rear so much, but I just want to know the overall weight of the car, so I know that if it is really, really heavy, then cutting out the roll cage is probably something that could be on the card. So. Second last thing that we've probably got on the mark is the diff. One really keen viewer on Project Redline picked up that the axles were twisted before we even put them in the car, which we already knew. Which is true. Yep, they definitely they've had a hard life through all the previous owners. This diff's been in here for a long time, but the Hilux diff is very strong, but I mean, surely it's going to be a point in time that the quicker and quicker this car 60 foots, and especially if it goes to a much better track, that this diff is probably going to expire. Yeah, well, you haven't, speaking of 60 foots, that's one area where you could pick up a lot of time. Yeah, it hasn't, I mean, and I don't know if it's just the track at Heathcote, but I mean, the best at 60 foot is basically 141. And that's normally right at the start of the day. Yeah. The track's normally really good at the start of the day in terms of 60 foot, and it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse. So realistically, if we were running like a consistent 135, that'd be pretty good for this car, I think. Yeah, if it could dip into the mid 135s, I mean, even that pass when it ran 940 and it sort of 147 and misfired, and that, I mean, it'd probably run straight to 920s. Yeah. I mean, it's only got 4.3 diff gears in the rear as well, and at the moment, just sort of crossing the finish line at a bit over 9,000 RPM. So that's all I really want to turn it to as well. So We may need to change diff gears. If I do that as well, it's only got 26 8.5 tyre. I'd really like maybe one day to put a 28.9 tyre on it. So we'll see what we do regarding the diff and that. I'll keep racing it till it breaks, and then I'll worry about that if we have to slightly mini tub it, put a bigger tyre on it, whatever.
You said you'd never put a bigger tyre. Oh, 28.9.
28.9. Yeah, I mean it's. So if you have
so this is a 26 by
8.5, which is a pretty common tyre.
It is.
Back in the day, a lot of people probably know Fullboost for the untubbed drag racing
rotary list,
and this was the size tyre basically you could fit only on most Mazdas.
The irony of this car is the original owner of this car was pretty much the guy who stepped up untubbed racing.
Yeah, it was the first one with the clutchless transmission, and essentially with like half.
It wasn't the first. It wasn't. It was
one of the first clutchless, but it was one that built a proper purpose-built race car to go as fast as he could in that category. Everyone else's cars back then were basically just street cars, really fast street cars almost.
Well, they were more like this.
Yeah.
They weren't at that level.
Street based and that, and 26 8.5 is a really common tyre because it fits under most cars with very little modification. 28.9 probably needs the rear guards cut out a little bit, mini tubbed and squared off. So if we do that, It means we'll be able to put some kind of decent racing rim or something on it as well. But yeah, last but not least, the number one thing I guess that the people commented on in our Facebook group about what we should do to this car was water injection, and it is something that I've always been keen on trying to see how far we could push certain fuels. Most of the cars that then run into say sub 850s and that on rotaries will definitely be running methanol because it is. I mean, the
it'd be nice to try that on the dyno.
So I mean, I think I'd really like to. Even with E85, I mean, the reason people go E85, it's got great detonation suppression because it's an alcohol-based fuel. So a lot of people are only run water injection with our 98 octane fuel, 93 maybe in the US, but with that fuel to really raise it up to the level of say another petrol like a C16. And because C16 is so expensive, you run 98 at the pump plus water injection or water and meth
mix. Seems the guys are getting some pretty good results with it, aren't they?
Yeah, it's really good. But what I'd like to do is run the water and meth injection with the ethanol, with the E85 as well, and see what that can do. Because at the moment we're crossing the line at about 65 degree intake temps. So the more and more boosts we run, they're going to keep on climbing. So the cooler.
Well, we haven't got like a high end intercooler in it.
Yeah, I know. We've got like it's just a profile.
It's going to get to a point where it'll start creeping up very quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's another thing why why I'm looking to upgrade ECU as well, is because I'd like to test stuff for everyone as well, and for my own interest, but everyone that watches our project car build as well, because I'd like to put a sensor for temperature in just after the turbo, then just after the intercooler, then after where the water injection will be spraying to actually data log how efficient the intercooler is, but then also what the water injection is doing for the intake charge. Because and the reason we want to cool the intake charge so much is the denser the air, basically the more we can cram in there and more power we can make. So the cooler the air, you probably know if you've driven your turbo car during the peak of summer, like today it's going to be 42, 43 degrees here in Melbourne. It's absolutely going to be absolutely roasting. If we were to drive our turbocharged car in this weather, compared to say in the middle of winter where it's like 10 degrees Celsius or whatever, you'll notice a big difference in performance. And that's what we want to get out of this. So water injection is something we'll probably want to investigate and do as well. So, but we'll wait for that. The ECU, we may do the ECU and the water injection at the same time. So we'll put an upgraded ECU on it, and then we'll put the water injection kit on it, go and sort out the tune with the new ECU, and then turn the water injection on and keep on just keep on playing with it then. So don't know what we're going to do in terms of ECU and that yet. I don't know if anyone's got suggestions of what we should do. I mean, we've got ideas of what we're probably we want to do. Water injection.
But with this car, we are very open to ideas about anything on the car.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest,
even maybe an LS in there at some time. Better start backing away out of
that's
the
got it.
I know. I noticed
there's
there's an LS in the driveway, Brummy. What is going on?
That's because it's like bloody taxi. It's a glorified taxi engine like the Barra. They're just for hauling transport. They're not performance engines, are they? They're just. I heard one of those things. They sound disgusting.
I think I just heard a broken Mitsubishi turn up.
Is Jordo here again?
Again, he probably needs your help more. Again, I might go see what he's doing.
We should go and have a look at what he's doing out there.
We'll just walk past the super reliable car here. Never let me down once.
Too bad the engine sounds like it's broken.
This pretty much sounds like a Subaru at the moment, doesn't it? This is why you don't drive around in an untuned car. Why isn't it tuned? Because we'll do it in another video, but we had a crank trigger sensor put on and the timing belt adjusted and everything. It's thrown the timing out. So I've just been grunting around this car. Do you want me to start this up, see if it sounds as good as your Subaru?
This
Hey, let's my Subaru run.
This is a genuine.
What's going on here, Bruno?
I had a plugger blowout and I couldn't get to the shops in time, so I got a bread clip.
What's a plugger? That's a bread off the bread.
This is off a bread, see?
Thongs.
It's like a loaf of bread. This is the clip.
Over there.
And then, see? Confused. Look at that. It's gone straight through.
That's a full life hack.
So I put this here, like that, and now it won't go through. Look at that. It's as good as new. Does my hair look alright today?
Speaking of rude haircuts, look at Jordo's.
Some flog will bag my hair again.
I went to the barber shop and I came out with some hipster shit.